Yo, what's up? On this episode of the FMA Dumpster Fire podcast, we're going to discuss what percentage of Filipino martial arts works for self defense, and we will try not to get butt hurt and offended by it. See you in a minute.
Get the fuck out of bed, bitch. Go.
You're finished! Let's go!
Get up. Gotta wake up, bitch. Get up.
Oh,
Get up. Get up.
For it, launch the counterattack.
what's up, everybody? So, today we're going to talk about what percentage of Filipino martial arts actually works for self defense, and we are going to have this discussion without getting offended. Okay, can we do that? And joining me today is nobody, because nobody really joins me because I don't schedule these things and I don't really think about these things ahead of time, which is cool. So, got my Pope Francis mug. And we're going to talk about this. So, let me pose the question to you guys, okay? What percentage of Filipino martial arts works directly for self-defense? Notice I interjected that word directly for self-defense. Now, the answer is going to obviously depend on what Filipino martial arts system that you study. It's going to depend on the kind of instructor that you have. And it's going to depend on whether or not or how much of the Kool-Aid you've drank. All right. So let me share with you my opinion. This is my opinion. I'm going to give you a number, just like this question asks. And maybe if you're brave enough, you can also give me a number of what percentage of Filipino martial arts works for self-defense. Now, again, whatever this number is that you're about to hear from me, it is an opinion, and you can justifiably say that your opinion doesn't matter, Paulo Rubio, but you're probably right. It doesn't really matter, but what matters is the conversation. So, and again, please, guys, first of all, I feel like it's like, when you have to fire somebody or you have to give a criticism of somebody, you kind of have to sandwich it with positivity. So let me sandwich this positivity, because let me warn you right now, the percentage of Filipino martial arts that works directly for self-defense that I'm about to share with you is low. And it is in the single digits. Okay? But let me sandwich that. Let me put some positivity bread in between this opinion. I have to say that I love the Filipino martial arts. It is the one martial art that I've done consistently for the longest amount of time. It's the martial art that gives me the most amount of joy, and joy for multiple levels, right? Joy as far as giving me a canvas and a stage to perform and express myself artistically. Joy as far as having a challenge. And constantly be in a loop of learning something new. And you know how important it is to constantly be learning something new. I've spent my whole entire life bouncing from hobby to hobby to hobby, because when you start a new hobby, the rate of exponential growth at the beginning, where everything is new, everything is exciting, that's really, really good for your brain. It's good for your mental agility and neuroplasticity. And when it comes to the Filipino martial arts, that pool never really runs out. There's always a new pattern, a new drill, a new challenge, a new sequence, a new interpretation. Something is new. Filipino martial arts keeps that newness in our practice. I know people who are, in their second and third and fourth decade of Filipino martial arts study who are still pursuing beautiful challenges, and it keeps them young. Okay. There's a very thick slice of bread, by the way, before I give you my opinion on what percentage of it actually works. What's another thing? Culturally, it's beautiful. It's especially meaningful for me as a Filipino. But anywhere in that region is good. If you have Filipino friends, is good. And if you have no ties to Filipino culture whatsoever, it's a wonderful way to explore a brand new culture, totally unrelated to yours. You know, my son is recently doing Filipino martial arts, so that's given me a way to be a better, more connected father. Really thick slices of positivity bread here before I lay out what percentage of Filipino martial arts actually works. And if you're listening right now, please share with me your opinion. Okay, let me know. So here it is. Ready for the percentage? What percent of Filipino martial arts works directly for self-defense? 2%. I think it's 2%. 2% of Filipino martial arts works directly for self-defense. Now, some caveats. First, let's look at the whole Panantukan spectrum, right? All the fancy combinations and limb destructions and all that stuff. I wouldn't rate it very high comparative to things like Western boxing, Muay Thai, things like maybe even Kyokushin karate. I wouldn't rate it very high when I'm speaking on a comparative basis. Let me go to Dumog, for example. I wouldn't rate Dumog very high when we compare it to all the different styles of wrestling, Sambo, Greco-Roman, freestyle, right? I wouldn't rate it very high against Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on a comparative level. Now, look, I'm going to lay the bread thick again, right? I am not passionate about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm not passionate about boxing. And so when I have something like Panantukan or Dumog to lean on, where I can kind of attach myself to it, while it may not be objectively superior, it is subjectively superior to me because my enjoyment of those things means I am likely to glean the same principles. And if I take those principles and I infuse my particular way of study, then I can get pretty close to a decent enough understanding to serve a self-defense purpose. I am not going to be tapping out any brown and black belts. I'm not going to be tapping out no purple belts. You know what I mean? But hopefully I'm not engaging with those criminals on the street. And so the other thing I want to talk about, why I believe that only 2% of Filipino martial arts works with direct applicability, is that the delivery method isn't direct. Okay? The delivery method isn't direct. Whereas if you would look at, combative systems, the delivery method is direct. They try to recreate specific scenarios or specific conditions. Filipino martial arts is almost supremely concerned, for the most part. And again, hold on, okay? Just letting you know, I'm not speaking for your system, okay? And inevitably, a lot of the comments will be, unless I say this kind of statement, a lot of the comments will be, well, not in my system. My guru, we focus on realism. Okay. But even things like, Sayok or, here's the thing. Okay. I'll name names, right? I'll mention maybe Sayok. I'll maybe mention Atienza Kali. I will maybe mention Libre, right? By the way, shout out to Scott. Love that dude. And any, martial blade concepts, right? All of these things are a distillation of what their founder learned from Filipino martial arts. And that's actually a good thing because Filipino martial arts is so vast that you need to boil it down to see what remains. But just remember that these are all interpretations of one or two people's journey. It's their judgment call on what works and presenting it in a way that resonates with them and hopefully resonates with their students, right? And so a lot of these systems make attempts at boiling down something really, really vast. You know, they're trying to boil the ocean to get a pinch of salt. That's beautiful. I just made that up. But that's what I'm saying. The Filipino martial arts is so vast that its direct applicability, like you really need to look for it. That's not to say that the attribute development, as far as precision, timing, accuracy, power, mobility, proximity, distance management, it doesn't mean those things aren't being worked on. In fact, I actually prefer this broad exploration because there's only just a handful of concepts, and like I said, the more you enjoy something, the more you're likely to keep doing those things. Okay, so let's address the comments. I've said my piece. I've said 2% of Filipino martial arts works directly for self-defense, and even systems like maybe Barao Sugbo or any Filipino martial arts that highly focuses on just knife defense is a very, very small, minuscule element of self-defense more broadly. Okay, cool. Let's see, Marco, even tapping white belts with Dumog will be a problem. Yeah. Because Dumog, a lot of Dumog practitioners don't have, or Dumog instructors don't have a good delivery method. I'll tell you, the best quote Dumog class that I've ever taken was in the Philippines at the Pikiti Tertia Tactical Association Asia Training Conference. And the reason why that was the best Dumog class I ever took was the guy who was teaching it. His name was Johannes Renninghoff, and he is a German jiu-jitsu gold medalist. So for those of you guys who aren't familiar with German jiu-jitsu, it's basically like jiu-jitsu, but there are rounds or elements of it where striking is allowed. But they have a delivery method. German jiu-jitsu is solid. It's not very well known, but they have a delivery method like Brazilian jiu-jitsu where they roll, where they apply pressure, right? Whereas Dumog, it's a lot of it reminds me of, just manipulating a bendy straw, like that bendy straw, right? That pipe cleaner, that Gumby is going to bend and fold exactly the way you want it to because it's not giving you any resistance. Okay. A lot of the stuff that happens in Dumog, and particularly the way in which they are expressed as training, and you know what? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu does this too, where they run sequences, right? Because it's more about the setup to a submission. The setup to a submission is infinite. There's a billion ways to get there, but there's only really one or two principles at play to lock that submission. But it's how you get there that ultimately determines your skill. Guys, I know how to do a solid armbar, but I probably don't have the breadth of experience to know and identify when I have an opportunity to grab it because I'm not a jiu-jitsu practitioner. I know the principles behind executing an armbar, but it's that delivery method that jiu-jitsu has superior to Filipino martial arts. Now, I know defenders of Dumog will say something like, well, we're not concerned with slowly throttling a submission. We're breaking. And a lot of that is actually, for me, just understanding how the human body works, it's kind of laughable. And somebody says, okay, I grab your arm and I hit it like this and I break your arm or I break your neck. You hear this a lot from people who teach Dumog. Boom, break that. Bang, break that. Boom, break that. And probably there is a diminished sense of how resilient human bodies actually are. Like, you're not breaking that. And here's the thing. Here's anything that any jiu-jitsu practitioner, any, single stripe white belt will tell you is the moment you feel resistance, you're going to present opposition to it, right? And so a lot of things come into play that isn't necessarily covered in Dumog. And that's unfortunate because it's not like it can't. Like I said, the best Dumog class I ever took was a guy named Johannes Renninghoff, who, by the way, is he's got a pretty high level law enforcement background, and he's responsible for thousands and thousands of officers. And you know what? He's a TRICOM instructor, and one of the pillars of TRICOM is Pekiti Tertia. So again, it's not a direct application for self-defense, but there are a lot. Here's the beautiful thing. There are a lot of narrow bridges and thin slivers of thread that do connect so much of Filipino martial arts into actual self-defense application. I would, perhaps I would see it as like, you ever see those rickety bridges in Southeast Asia that connect one side of a valley to another, and there's like a big river? Those really shaky, thin bridges, that's kind of Filipino martial arts, right? Where your safety of crossing isn't guaranteed, and there's a lot you got to do so that you don't fall to your death. But it is nonetheless a bridge. And if you, like I said, if you enjoy exploring these principles through the lens of Filipino martial arts, you're more likely to do it. Okay? So far, I see nobody else giving me a percentage, even though I've asked for it. What percentage of Filipino martial arts directly works? Let's see. What's up? Wing Chun Brotherhood, Kaizen Dojo Films, motivational martial arts movies. What up, brother? What's up? Okay, I don't know what that is. What's up, Lex? How you doing? Okay. And by the way, guys, how shall I put this? Like, I really love Filipino martial arts, and I love being a part of this community. And for the most part, here's what I get a lot. I get a lot of people when I meet them in person going, I didn't want to say anything. Rubio. But you were right about XYZ, or I agree with you. Sometimes these opinions are dirty little secrets, right? And totally understandable. Anyway, that's it. That's the percentage of Filipino martial arts that I believe works directly for self-defense. And that's pretty good. I'll tell you what. Let me make some connections to other martial arts, right? The art of 8 limbs, Muay Thai, Muay Boran, Krabi Krabong. Well, let's just say Muay Thai, okay? You guys know that the Muay Thai library of techniques is actually quite vast. It's actually a very sophisticated and elaborate martial art. But here's what's important, right? They have a healthy competition platform, right? Which is the heat that distills the art into its core practical elements. And so when you see a Muay Thai fight, right? Even though there are some fighters out there who really get elaborate with it, but you only see just a handful of moves, right? And the same can be said about the art of jiu-jitsu. It is a vast art. There's so many techniques just from the takedown library alone is vast, right? But when there's competition, it boils down to more or less the same 4 or 5 submissions, right? And so when I say, Filipino martial arts is probably 2% directly applicable for self-defense, I mean it in the same vein, in that it's a beautiful, elaborate, vast, not just even one system, a group of systems. So you can imagine the number is extraordinarily high, right? But when we apply our heat, when we apply our rolling, when we apply our sparring, when we apply our competition platforms, when we apply the heat and we try to boil down this vast body of water into the mineral components contained within them, dissolving the rest of the liquid, then yeah, when you watch a good Filipino martial arts stick fighting match, you will not likely see the footwork patterns as they are often trained, except for my matches, because I try to look pretty. Y'all seen my matches? I get smacked in the face and I take a lot of damage, or I should say, I used to take a lot of damage because I would take a lot of risks because I want to look pretty, right? Again, I see Filipino martial arts as a stage, and when people are watching me fight, I kind of like this idea that, hey, I'm here for me to get better, but I'm also performing for you. All right. And some people will agree with that, some people won't, but it's gladiatorial for me, right? I want the audience to be entertained when they see me fight. And at the expense of getting smacked in the face and looking foolish and getting embarrassed, those are small prices to pay for me. In any case, when you see a stick fighting match, when you see a really good one against two equally skilled opponents, what you are more likely to see is not a whole lot of swinging, right? And when they do swing, it's a handful. It's an angle one, it's an angle two, forehand and backhand laterals, maybe a couple of thrusts in there. But it's the moments in between these clashes. When I watch two really skilled Filipino martial arts stick fighters go at it, it's like watching two black belts roll, right? Could be quite boring to the untrained eye because they are respecting intentions without fully executing on it. Right? Those who do jiu-jitsu kind of will understand that, right? Where you respect your opponent's intention, right? Without, powering through or speeding through circumventing it. Yeah, a little move like that. Okay, I see. You saw my intention. We'll move on to the next thing. And that's why. And again, for those who have an uneducated eye, like when they watch a Filipino martial arts match, they're like, "Oh, what happened to all your fancy drills and footwork?" I'm like, "Well, we're applying heat. We're applying our version of what boils down Muay Thai from a vast catalog of arts into just a handful of techniques. We're applying the same kind of heat that shows us 4 or 5 consistent submission finishes in jiu-jitsu, despite it being a very broad art." Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Let's get to some of the comments. Yeah, Keith Martin, I absolutely appreciate FMA, but I see the difficulty in translation. I always look for practical ways to realistically apply it. So let me say this. Instead of trying to apply it realistically, which will diminish a vast majority of it because you're stick fighting and knife fighting and sword fighting, right? Instead of necessarily translating it into a practical application, just be concerned with pressure testing the concepts, right? How good are you at distance management, of earning those angles, of delivering your strikes with power, and just enjoy the crap out of it. Spar a lot, spar as often as you can. Anyway, thanks for being here, Keith. I appreciate it. Rakesh Maharaj, I think every system has its weaknesses. The wise will seek out the problems and look to fill in those blanks. Yeah, that's right. The wise will seek out the problems and look to fill in those blanks. Maybe. I have this thing. I have this. You guys know availability bias, the psychological phenomena known as availability bias. I'll give you an example of availability bias. If you know somebody who, if you know a friend of a friend of a friend who was attacked by a shark, you're more likely to be fearful of shark attacks. Now, the closer that tie is, so if you have a cousin who was attacked by a shark, the likelihood of you being fearful of shark attacks goes up. If you have a brother or a sister or a mother who was attacked by a shark, then your fearfulness will go up because the availability to this event will kind of skew your your idea of how frequent or how dangerous, how common these things are. And so here's the thing, guys. We're Filipino martial artists, right? A lot of us are tactical and combative minded, right? And so our friends are likely to be tactical and combative minded. Our friends are likely to be concerned with the study of the blade. And so on our social media feeds, we are constantly seeing knife attacks. Okay. The availability of this information to us creates a bias in our mind. And so we think the world is more knifey than it actually is. Now, look, edged weapons are omnipresent. They're available to criminals in every country almost without restriction, right? And so there is that, but and I do have the numbers, the statistics for knife attacks. They're big, but not comparative, not big compared with simple assaults, and also really a vast majority of knife assaults and knife attacks happen between two people who know each other and have a history, like domestic violence, things like that. So, and this is why I'm not, while I teach, knife defense concepts, I teach, law enforcement and military units. I can say that now. I can say that, sanctioned by the unit. Not that I had one Marine friend that joined the class. I can say I'm a law enforcement and military trainer now. That's really cool. Actually, I can't say I'm a military trainer yet because I didn't have like a full unit. I had some instructors sent by the unit. So I don't know if that qualifies me as a military knife instructor. And yeah. So while I do deal in that realm, and I take that part very, very seriously, and I do a lot of study and testing with regards to that for my own personal study, right? I live in Canada, man, right? I'm not an idiot. I'm not out there looking for fights and looking to get stabbed. So the likelihood of a random committed knife threat or knife assault to me is slim to none. Slim to none. Now, I'm not everybody. And so training prioritization matters, but knowing yourself, knowing who you are, where you live, and what you do, that is what's really going to give you an accurate representation of how you should manage training prioritization. And for me, I have the luxury of living in a peaceful place. I have the skills to be able to de-escalate and avoid conflict. And so I make more room for art. And this is why I love the Filipino martial arts. As I said in the beginning, it's an infinite canvas with which to explore. It keeps my brain very, very young and agile, and it maintains, the neuroplasticity. There's this idea that I really, really love, and it goes something like this. The more new things you learn, the better you get at learning new things. Okay, one more time. The more new things you learn, the better you get at learning new things. And that lends itself to an individual that is supremely adaptable, is a creative problem solver. And that being a creative problem solver and being adaptable, right? Couple that with a bit of resilience and intelligence, like that is the matrix for self-defense right there, right? Isn't it? Okay, cool. The spar I had with Zerger was like this. We were very respectful of each other and didn't need to smash. We recognized when we got the angle advantage off of each other. Yeah, I was actually talking about your sparring match with one of my guys, Dan, who has a tendency to just crash and and be very brutal when he spars. I'm like, look at this match. They were moving controlled, even slowly, and you guys were still hitting each other with it. I like to go, especially when it comes to stick fighting. I like speed with no power. Speed with no power is like that's the game for me. Um, yeah, I quite enjoy that. I could be better at that at the technical sparring part, but I think um, you can speed with no power is my preference. Um, but that was a really great match. Hi, sexy. Was that sexist? Anyway, I think the martial arts community has overplayed the danger of the world to scale classes. It really feeds. Yeah, it's a lot of it is fear mongering, right? And sometimes they don't even know it because of their Okay, let's talk about availability bias again. A lot of martial arts instructors were bullied as children. Okay. A lot of them had some traumatic event where they got beat up, they got jumped, they were bullied. And so, whether it is by their own course of action or through parental guidance, they were put into the martial arts. Okay. And so, a lot of martial arts instructors have this savior complex based initially on an availability bias. I'm not a psychologist, by the way. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But here's how that works, okay? A child growing up gets bullied and experiences the pain and trauma related to that. They take up martial arts never again to be bullied. And so their savior complex looks at their students who may be getting bullied and they want to fix that problem. They want to save people from experiencing the pain and the trauma with which they experienced and found the martial arts to be the solution. Okay. Um, I I want to say that I don't have that, right? It's not that I wasn't bullied. There were parts of my life where I was like, damn, that grade 8 and when I was in grade 6 was bullying me. But I was never really like bullied in that way, not over a sustained period of time. I have no trauma with which I use martial arts to fix. You know, it really is primarily a cultural, artistic, and intellectual challenge for me. That's why I love it. It is another canvas. It is another stage for me. And yeah, and because of that, you know, I'm really honest. Even in my, I'll tell you this, even in my, knife defense, even in my practical knife defense courses, I always make it a point to say, guys, I will never betray the art. I will show you what is probable and I will share with you some opinions on how to navigate those probable attacks. But I can tell you right now, you're not going to be doing this 5 days a week. So here, if you choose to accept it, is a softer, low amplitude, perhaps even artistic drill that if we do this hard thing right now, here's a drill with a sliver of a connection to that hard thing so that at the very least you can maintain that connection in a way that's safe and appropriate to your job. Because if you get injured in training, you're not able to serve and protect. Okay. Cool. Robert Small. I like the emphasis of techniques rather than power. They're to learn, not hurt each other. What is going on with everybody's grammar today? Take your time when you're typing, please. I'm just kidding. I like the emphasis of techniques rather than power. There are some techniques that grip my mind, but again, I'm a principle-based learner, you know. And there's that cliche saying, you understand a principle, you know 1,000 techniques. It's actually very true. Anyway, 2% of Filipino martial arts works for self-defense. That is my opinion. I'm happy to share it with you. I hope I've justified it enough, not to have offended some people. But then again, there is a Filipino martial arts community, and sometimes what connects people is their mutual hate for an individual, an opinion, or a system. I love all of it. All right. Thanks for joining me. If you guys have any questions, I am going to stick around for a few more minutes. After that, I'm going to the mall to go Christmas shopping. But yeah, what are you guys interested in lately? What's occupying your mind as far as Filipino martial arts is concerned, or as far as any martial art is concerned, actually? Currently, for me, I hesitate to say it, but I never liked, while I appreciated, I never liked forms. I never really liked katas. I enjoy free flowing. I don't like standardized sequential movement patterns that are judged by somebody else's standards. I really never liked that. But that's kind of changed. I think, I think it's just part of my evolution. Now I'm learning the 64 tax subsystem of Pikiti Tertia and its component parts, Abecedario, Orasan, Cuatro Cantos. And also, I am, to kind of blend the two, I'm creating my own forms, not just in a vacuum, of course, but with the help of some of my more senior students. We start with an angle 1 and an angle 2, and then we go, okay, what if there was an attack 90 degrees of us, right? And what if that attack was a lateral attack? What would be an appropriate motion? And so I think this is how really great forms last the test of time, is that there is a deeper logic behind it. And I'm not saying that forms will make you become a better fighter, but what I like about forms, particularly Filipino martial arts forms, is that they become a vessel that carries a whole bunch of techniques that you can use sort of like as a checklist to be able to learn simultaneously, right? So Abecedario, boom, 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 right there. It's beautiful. So I've really fallen in love with forms, and I think that a good Filipino martial arts form has enough leeway for you to explore, as far as how do we take this form and modify it for a different weapon type? How do we take this form and infuse with it a whole different set of footwork, right? So learning the florete forms from Sensei E through his teachings in the Philippines at the last PTTA camp. I'm learning the 64 attacks and all the component parts of the Abecedario. I am creating my own forms for knife and stick. I've not yet created a form for double stick, but I think that will be a very, very interesting one. Cool. I like working the principles, and we try to fill those weaknesses, striking and transitioning to throws or projections. Yeah. What I found also in learning forms for myself is that I find it really enjoyable to teach those forms to my class, right? It's quite rewarding to teach a group a form, because once we get it and we're moving in sync, the energy of a group of people moving in sync is absolutely incredible. Even if it's just simple ones and twos, when the group is moving in sync, there is a kind of energy that is created from that, and people enjoy it very, very much. So yeah, I'm learning the forms. Maybe eventually I'll learn the contradas and the seguidas and the bubi ribapides. Like, There's a ton. But what I don't want to do is to just learn the form so that I can parrot the form. I really want to explore, and I really want to understand the depth of it. And sometimes that depth, I was talking with Coach Danny Terrell from Bikini Tertia International, and we were talking about the Abecedario form. And we were talking about how genius it was. And then I wrote, yeah, but the guy who made it probably did it while he was taking a shit. And it's true, right? These instructors and figureheads create these forms, but it's the practitioners that make those forms genius. It's the eye of the beholder that sees the depth of that form beyond what sometimes beyond what the creator had even intended. Like a good piece of art. The artist may have an intention, an emotion they want to evoke, a message they want to convey, but it's really from the observer that alternate meanings and interpretations can arise from. And so I would recommend that you guys, especially those doing Filipino martial arts, when you come across these forms, pay respects to the standard, do it as it is taught to you, but never ever forfeit to your master, your instructor, or your system your right to explore it and to interpret it. Again, that's my opinion. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys all have a very Merry Christmas. I hope that you get better at learning new things by learning new things. I hope you continually find new challenges in the Filipino martial arts, right? And I hope that you're able to see the spectrum of benefit from Filipino martial arts, again, based on your training intention. But it really, really is an amazing set of systems. And, hopefully one day it gets the infamy and the notoriety and the influence and the power that it deserves. But we have to earn it. So thank you guys very much for watching. If there's nothing else, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
Get the fuck out of bed, bitch. Go.
You're finished! Let's go!
Get up. Gotta wake up, bitch. Get up.
Oh!
Get up. Get up.
Before it, launch the counter